Hello Sleeping Dogs fans. In this video I'm going to be doing something which I am shocked isn't been attempted before, at least as far as I'm aware, and that is a iceberg on Sleeping Dogs. Now this iceberg was actually created by myself, as I couldn't find one online. When I tried to search it just came up with a Watch Dogs iceberg. And if somebody doesn't know what an iceberg is, very briefly, it's just at the top of the iceberg is more well-known stuff, at the bottom of the iceberg's more lesser-known stuff, and I just go through each one, kind of trying to explain each of these points. I would like to preface this video is going to have major spoilers for certain parts of the game, and also I am assuming you know Sleeping Dogs before getting into this video, because in this video I'm not going to be explaining any of the story in detail. I'm just going to assume you know the main story anyway, so this isn't going to be breaking down any story elements. So anyway, my Sleeping Dogs fans, I hope you enjoy this video, and let's get into it. True Crime Hong Kong. Sleeping Dogs was originally called True Crime Hong Kong, which was going to be a part of the True Crime series, which also includes Streets of LA, and then one set in New York, which I can't remember what it's called. The game was announced at the Spike Video Game Awards in 2009 as True Crime Hong Kong, and the game was set for a release in, I believe it was fall 2010. But in May of that year, Activision announced that it was going to be pushed back to 2011, but then when 2011 came around, the game was cancelled entirely, with the developers stating that it was because of quality issues. In August of 2011, Square Enix would get the publishing rights to the game itself, and with the help of United Front Games in August 2012, we got the rebranded, spiritual successor, I suppose, to the True Crime franchise, which would be known as Sleeping Dogs. Infernal Affairs. Infernal Affairs is a movie set in Hong Kong, which has a striking resemblance to Sleeping Dogs. This movie did come out far before Sleeping Dogs did, at least by a decade. But if you were looking for a movie that is very reminiscent of Sleeping Dogs, I would very, very much suggest watching Infernal Affairs, as you may very well enjoy it as a Sleeping Dogs fan. I also want to mention that I knew there was a Sleeping Dogs Easter egg in the game itself, where there's like a DVD in Way's apartments, in multiple of them, where you can see Sleeping Dogs as like a DVD, right? So I thought maybe they've got the same for Infernal Affairs, and then I checked, and I couldn't find an Infernal Affairs Easter egg, but what I did find is these DVDs that seem, or at least cases that seem to be blurred, as if there was some copyright stuff on them. So whether it's a glitch, or something that's went overlooked by the developers, or something censored, I would be interested. So please let me know in the comments below if this is actually something that I should look deeper into, or that anybody knows anything about. Definitive Edition and DLC. So in October 2014, Sleeping Dogs would get the Definitive Edition, which is just an upgraded graphical version of the original game, but this time including every single DLC that came with Sleeping Dogs. There are a lot of things like the red notes that you can collect around the world that give you, I think it's 50 smackaroonies. I believe they were actually DLC, which a lot of people just do not know, and I'm sure there's other side missions that are DLC, but the main DLCs being stuff accessible from the main menu, which is the major DLCs or expansions, Nightmare on North Point and The Year of the Snake. They're all included in the Definitive Edition, and the Definitive Edition is the edition that's far more easier to access now, and the one that most people watching this video have either played or are actively playing. Unreachable Places. Like many other games, Sleeping Dogs has a variety of unreachable places that you can see. You'll see in my gameplay now that there is a building really far off in the distance that without any mods is completely unreachable, and this is very common in games, but I see it explored in a lot of games like Red Dead Redemption 2's Mexico, for example, or in the Batman Arkham games like Arkham City, where people try to get out of bounds and explore the out of bounds areas, but I never see anybody talk about this with Sleeping Dogs, so I just thought, why not mention it here, as like many games, at least open world games, there are out of bounds areas that you just can't get to, which are just there to make the world feel more alive, I suppose. Outfits. At a certain shop vendor in the Definitive Edition of the game, who's marked on the map as being gold, you can buy a bunch of outfits that are referenced to other pop culture, like an outfit that references Bruce Lee, a Just Cause 2 main character outfit, Agent 47's outfit from the Hitman series, and so on and so forth. Batman Arkham. The combat in Sleeping Dogs is very inspired, it seems, to the Batman Arkham games, and many people have pointed this out, and I don't think it's for the worse, as I do really like the Sleeping Dogs combat, but whether you think it is better or worse than Arkham, I think without a doubt it is definitely inspired by the Arkham series, and the first Arkham game came out in 2009, I believe, and Sleeping Dogs came out in 2012, so it's quite obvious which one inspired the other. Sleeping Dogs movie. Now Sleeping Dogs is over a decade old, and people have been mentioning a movie occasionally here and there. I've heard it occasionally, not very often though. But as of making this video, literally only about 18 or 19 days ago, the actor Simu Liu, who I think is best known for Shang-Chi in The Legend of the Ten Rings, announced that he was working on a Sleeping Dogs movie. I mean, I'll put the tweets on screen now, and he actually referenced Sleeping Dogs in both of these tweets, and they're his most recent tweets at the time of me recording this video. So it doesn't seem like a Sleeping Dogs movie is completely out of the question. So maybe in the future, we'll see a Sleeping Dogs movie, who knows. Death by 1,000 cuts. I actually didn't know this until I was introduced to the Reddit yesterday, but in the r/Sleeping Dogs, the mission Death by 1,000 cuts, which is needed for the game to be 100% completed by somebody, is seen as being the hardest mission in the game and the hardest mission towards completing the 100%. Now, not to toot my own horn, I actually found it far easier than people give it credit for, although I understand people do have different skill levels or are good at different types of games. That being said, it is known as being relatively difficult by the people, at least on Reddit, and it is memed on quite a few times. Pretend taxi. Now in the game, there is a really cool detail which is very well known, I believe, and most people watching this probably know about this, where if you steal a taxi and then park it near where there are pedestrians, a pedestrian will hop in the taxi thinking you are a taxi man until you correct them and then they run off, and I just think it's a really cool detail. Also, I want to point out that there are two variations of the taxi depending on where you are in the world. If you're in the more posh area, it will be green, whereas the rest of the map it's actually red, so I just thought that was pretty interesting. Pork bun. Another mainly Reddit thing, in the community, pork bun is probably the most well-known meme, which is because of this quote from an NPC around the world.
A man who never eats pork buns is never a whole man.
This guy you can buy, well, pork buns from, I suppose, and they give you little stat boosts. And in Sleeping Dogs, you have 100% heard this if you've played the game for even half an hour, let alone hours, as it is so common to hear this constantly from this specific NPC you can find all around the map. Even Simu Liu, the actor who was talking about the Sleeping Dogs movie, quoted this in a tweet. The real question here though is, if a man never eats a pork bun, can he really truly become a whole man? And I think the answer is no. I mean, controversially, I think the answer is no. Cut multiplayer. Triad Wars was a spiritual successor to Sleeping Dogs, developed by United Front Games and published by Square Enix. It was an open-world, free-to-play online game for Microsoft Windows. There was no linear storyline, as it followed on your created character and your gang. It was going to feature a similar combat shooting and driving system found in Sleeping Dogs. It was announced on December 23rd, 2015, and the game would be closed on the 20th of January, 2016. Now, I read that word for word from the Sleeping Dogs wiki, so if any of this is incorrect, then I do apologise, as I don't know too much on the multiplayer itself, although there are some videos of Triad Wars on YouTube and people talking about Triad Wars if you're interested at all. But yes, there was going to be a multiplayer version of Sleeping Dogs. Ambulance plays police audio. So in the police cars in Sleeping Dogs, like in many other games that have police cars I suppose, you can hear a dispatcher talking about like an active shooting taking place and stuff on the radio. Obviously this is to make the world feel more alive and like there's stuff going on in the world, although in Sleeping Dogs there's so few that it repeats very often the same thing constantly. That being said, in the ambulances in the game, if you steal one, you also hear the same audio from the police cars, which is peculiar because you're in an ambulance but they're talking about an active hostage situation. It's just really peculiar. It does the same thing in fire trucks as well, although the fire trucks actually have it worse because the ambulance actually has a unique siren, whereas the fire truck has the same 3 or 4 that the police cars actually have. I think the reason for this is as simple as they just reused the dispatcher because of either time constraints or they just thought it wasn't something that people would really notice. But they could have just not had a dispatcher in both the ambulance and the fire trucks. Dogs in game. Now, Sleeping Dogs has a very little animals, if any. I believe there might be birds, but the fact that I play the game so much and I don't even know that shows you the limited amount of animals, if any, in the game. That being said, there are rumours that there are dogs in the game, although this is very easily debunked with people going through the code and because the game's been out for so long. I think the rumour really just started because you can hear dogs throughout ambience in the world. But it's there just to give ambience, because dogs in the canon, I assume, exist. I mean, the game is called Sleeping Dogs. It's just that they're not in the game because the developers just didn't think it necessary, I suppose. Ghosts. So within Sleeping Dogs and Nightmare on North Point DLC, there are many ghosts, or at least people risen from the dead, which is a big plot point. I mean, the main antagonist of the DLC is somebody who was deceased. That being said, when people think of ghosts in Nightmare on North Point, they're probably thinking of the really cool Easter egg with 2 of your deceased comrades, Jackie and Winston, who I'm sure don't need an introduction to most people, actually being in the Golden Koi, which is a location which is very prominent within the campaign, where if you go close, one waves at you and they disappear, and it's one of my favourite Easter eggs in gaming. I really love it. That being said, when I'm talking about ghosts specifically here, I'm talking about ghosts in the main story, the main game of Sleeping Dogs. And although there's been a few videos of people like trying to myth bust it, and there's been a few posts online of people talking about ghosts, I can safely say, with what I believe to be certainty, that there are no ghosts within the main game of Sleeping Dogs at all, although I would love to be proven wrong. I mean, there's a flashing light in this one window here, and that could be an indication of a ghost. Who knows? Ooh. Paramedics help people. So this is going to be a very quick one, but I just thought, and I'm sure quite a few people do know this, but I thought I'd mention that paramedics can actually help people who are on the street and are not moving, and I think that is very, very interesting. The reason I didn't put it at the top of the list and put it at the bottom, or even put it on the list at all, is simply due to the fact that they can actually do CPR. You won't see it in the gameplay here, but they can actually do CPR, and you can see the chest going up, which is pretty interesting, I think, and a cool detail. But yes, paramedics can help people, at least if you're in a relatively populated area. Destructible graves. So I saw this video on YouTube that claimed that these destructible graves were Easter eggs, and I must say that there is a main mission in the game, which I'm sure this person probably knows as well, in which there is a shootout that occurs at this graveyard, and you have both a grenade launcher and bullet weapons, and these graves are destructible in that mission, and I'm pretty sure that's the only reason they're destructible. But because I was lacking on things to put on this iceberg, I just thought I would mention this. Also, speaking of me looking on YouTube for inspiration for this iceberg, I came across this video, and look who's in the comments, Jacksepticeye! So that's a little Easter egg. If anybody wants to go say hi to Jacksepticeye in a random Sleeping Dogs video comment section, then be my guest, I suppose. Godzilla Roar. So if, like me, you've looked up Sleeping Dogs Easter eggs online, you'll see the dog in the game maybe, you'll definitely see rumours of ghosts, but one I'm sure you will also see is Godzilla's Roar. Now, the originator of this is by a YouTuber that actually has Godzilla in the name of their channel.
As you can hear, sounds pretty much like Godzilla from the 1954 movie, but I'm not.
Now, there's a few videos online of people debunking this. If you just type it in, you'll see some of them. In fact, they probably come up before the original. And also, I tried it out myself, albeit at the daytime, not nighttime, and I couldn't hear a single thing. Thus, I'm pretty sure this is just fake. But I do appreciate that somebody, even if it is fake, did put at least a little bit of effort into making a myth for Sleeping Dogs, because there are so few Easter eggs and myths or secrets in Sleeping Dogs that this one, albeit not having much substance to it, is at least something. Voice change for Smiley Cat. Now this comes from Reddit user MountainStuff134, so shout out there, and they posted a video which I'm playing on screen now that shows the Nightmare on North Point DLC's main antagonist, Smiley Cat, having a different voice from both the original game and the definitive edition.
I'm looking forward to this every day I've been in hell! And the few even before that.
I'm looking forward to this every day I've been in hell! And the few even before that!
But yeah, I thought that was kinda cool, and shout out to Mountain Stuff. Bad at karaoke. Speaking of Reddit, there's this secret game over screen that you can actually get that I found from Reddit, and I am taking it at face value, so it could actually be fake, but I'm certain it's probably not. And this person claims that when they failed a karaoke main mission, a main mission that involves karaoke, so not karaoke within the open world, which is unfailable, you can actually get this screen, which basically just rips into your character being really poor at karaoke, which I think is kind of a cool little death screen, or fail screen, I suppose. So I thought I would just put that on this iceberg. Wedding glass break. Now, a little bit like Ghost and the Godzilla Roar, if you've looked up any sort of myths or secrets or details in Sleeping Dogs, you've probably come across this. Now, you can find this in the open world, And although at first glance it may seem like a peculiar sound, like why does that happen in this random building, it's simply explained away as a mission in the game, my favourite mission in the game, where it takes place at a wedding, but the wedding venue is interrupted by a shootout, and you infiltrate the venue through the window because the front door's blocked, and you hear the exact same sound running through. In fact, I'll play some audio now. The sound's kind of bugged because you could just constantly activate the sound. But I think it's clear that it's just meant to be ambience for, glass smashing in the venue to show how bad the situation is, I suppose. Albeit they could have done a bit better with the sound design there. That being said, I believe that is the reason as to why you actually hear this sound. They just forgot to take this area out of the open world, I suppose. I also want to quickly point out that when I did this in the open world, when I left the area, for some reason every single vehicle within the game just despawned. Now I don't know whether that's very unique to me, or whether that will always happen. Maybe I should retry it to see. But yeah, I just thought it was really weird to look at the world without cars anywhere, without any sort of vehicle. It was just really, really peculiar. Trams. Now trams, or if you want to call them trains, are in Sleeping Dogs, and the reason this is so low on the list, and some people might see it's silly, but I feel like there will be some people that agree with me here. I have beat the game twice 100%, and actually just beat the main story. I've probably done that at least around 10 times, which isn't an insane amount of times, but it is a decent chunk of time that I've spent playing this game, and I never knew there were trams in the game. Now that I know, they are unmissable. Every time I go to this area, I cannot miss them. That being said, I literally only found this out a few days ago from a YouTube video where somebody actually got to the out of bounds tram-like tracks and went and followed it on a motorcycle, I believe. But I had absolutely no idea. There's also a tram station, which I knew about, and it also has a pretty empty parking lot, which I think is very poor design. Like, there's just no cars here at all in this big parking lot. But there's actually a station for the trams, and there are people around there waiting, I believe, although it's blocked off so you can't go on the tracks, which is it's unrealistic, but fair enough, whatever. But I just never put two and two together. I had no idea you could actually see physically trams in the game, or even there was a tram track. I had absolutely no idea. There definitely will be some people who just think I'm very non-observant though, I suppose, which is probably true. And finally on the list, we've got old people heart attacks. Now this clip is from Reddit, from Father Adrius. There is I don't know if I want to call it a rumour because people claim it to be factual, where old people can actually just randomly have heart attacks. Now this person, although they don't seem to be too old from the gameplay, although maybe I'm just mistaken from the quality of the gameplay, but it seems that this person grabs their chest and then just goes down, whether it's a heart attack, a cardiac arrest, whatever. But if this is actually a detail in the game or a glitch, I am unsure. People do claim it, even on this post itself, where the guy was asking, is this a glitch? People claim that it was actually a detail that old people can have heart attacks. So if that is the case, then it's something that is relatively rare because I've not seen it in game, not as far as I'm aware. Maybe I haven't, I've missed it. But even if it is something that the developers didn't intend, it definitely looks like somebody is having some sort of medical episode, so it is very interesting, and I thought at the very least I'd mention it. I can't confirm 100% if this is actually factually a thing. I've not had it happen to me in game, not that I'm aware of, or at least not that I've seen with my own eyes. But shout out to Father Adrius, whose clip I used to show you what this looks like. With that being said, I would actually be really interested in doing another Iceberg on Sleeping Dogs, but with fan suggestions, I suppose. So if people could put down in the comments below about little details that maybe I could have been on another Iceberg, or an Easter egg that I missed, or just a cool fact about the game, like the multiplayer that was cut, or something like that, just some cool fact about the game. It could be anything. Then please let me know, because I may, with enough points to talk about, actually make a second or follow-up Iceberg to this. But yeah, I hope you Sleeping Dogs fans did enjoy this. Like I said, I apologise for how short it is and how lackluster the Iceberg may seem to be. I was really interested in doing a Sleeping Dogs Iceberg because I love the game and nobody's done it, which is shocking to me. That being said, the third tier especially, as you can see, was something I really struggled to put anything on. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, and yeah, I'll see you in my next video.